Hey guys, Sandy here, and today I am participating in a YouTube hop for school. It is hosted by Sarah Scraps, and I am super excited to be participating. I'll have a link down below with everyone's layouts. So I'm going to be doing 2 photos today, 2 3x4 photos. This is my daughter. She is a senior in high school this year. She's holding her planner, and this is her stack of books. She does not have a lot of classes this year. So let's see what I can do. I have this stencil and it has a whole bunch of letters and numbers on it, and I thought that this would be perfect for back to school. I also have this kind of like school paper writing pad as a background that I'm using in, and that came from Jelly Bean Soup. And I thought it was kind of a cute, playful nod since this is her senior year of high school. I won't have any more of these kind of first day photos. Even though this isn't a first day photo, she actually hadn't started school when I had created this layout. So we went ahead and did like the stack of books that she was going to be using, and also the planner that she had chosen to use for the school year. So I just thought it was a cute little nod with that paper and the letters and such things. I am using a bunch of distress inks to go ahead and just rub some ink over that stencil, and I'm not doing it like hard lines over the edges, so there will be a square of ink on my page obviously when I pull the stencil up, but it's not going to be like a hard line of color. I want it to soften the edges just a little bit. And I am using that little paper bag there just as a gripper to pull off the little ink dauber foam bit. So if anyone has figured out how to not get their fingers inky when pulling off their daubers, let me know. Now I figure of course I could get an ink dauber for every single ink color, but honestly I have a lot of space. I have it basically in an entire room, but I just don't want to store them, you know? So there it is, and that is what came up with the colors. Now I went ahead and tore this paper. This is from Chamel, and I believe it's from Box of Crayons, I want to say. And I just made sure to tear it so that the white edge would be showing at the top, which is why you saw me kind of like choose which way I was going to tear it. So now that I have this, I'm just trying to figure out how I want the photos to layer. And I do know that I want them to layer on top of each other just a little bit. And I just had this little scrap from one of the Vicky Bouton paper pads. I believe it's color Kaleidoscope, I hope. But I just had it sitting there, so I decided to go with it. Now, my original plan for this layout was to add some glitter paste and stars with that stencil. However, that never came to fruition. I completely forgot about the stencil. I put it off too far to the side and realized that I had forgotten it. Now this is a tassel, and I do love tearing apart tassels and those flower things and everything to turn that into a fringe. I thought that the green would go well, and it did. It was a good color match, but I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it, so I put that back. Now, I think I need to bring in some florals. I don't know why. I just feel like I do. So I'm just kind of trying out some florals and trying to figure out like what I want to do, what colors I really want to accentuate. I already have the pink, blue, and the green down here on the bottom of the page, but I knew like I had to pick a color to really like bring it out, and I just wasn't sure which one I was going to do. So I'm going to mess around with my flowers, and this is one thing I do. So when we talk about organizing our things, and a lot of times we organize by theme, a lot of the times we organize by color. It's just a matter of what works for you. So I do usually keep my die cuts kind of together. Like I have basically my Chamel die cuts together. I have my Amy Tangerine die cuts together. I keep like the My Mind's Eye together. Anything that has like that October afternoon jelly bean soup with the creamy papers together. And that's how I store die cuts. I'm going to have to do a video about what I do here shortly. But anyway, flowers just make sense to me to keep them together because I can mix and match them. All that to say, flowers make sense to me to keep them together, to mix and match them. Wow, that was a long way of getting there. Okay, so this is a little packet from Close to My Heart, and I just grabbed it because I knew it had some bright, kind of boldy colors, and I decided to pull out the details word, and that has glitter on it. So glitter is always a good time. Now, I decided to add this best day ever as well. So last year was my other daughter's last first day of school. And for Chloe's layout, I actually wrote the last first day. And I didn't want to repeat that for Lana's layout. I wanted it to be different and special and unique. Because they are both very different and they are both awesome kids. So I just wanted, I didn't want to dial it in. I wanted them each to have their own page. So I decided to go with best day ever, just because it is the last first day of school. So yeah, good times. Anyway, here is this piece that I'm doing right now is a vellum piece. And I didn't want you to be able to see the adhesive through the letters, so I'm just cutting up some foam squares, and I'm covering up the parts that are gold on the front, just so you don't see it. And I am taking the time to do it throughout the entire banner, because if I just put like the bigger pieces on the end, the banner would sag in the middle. And sometimes I'm okay with saggy bits on my layouts, and sometimes I just don't want those saggy bits. You know what I'm talking about? So I'm just making sure to add those foam squares throughout the entire thing. Now I'm thinking I'm going to use that little vellum and gold speech bubble just as an accent up at the top. However, that poor little guy doesn't make it on the layout either. It's just kind of sad. Now, I'm behaving myself here, and I usually do when it's for a video, but usually when I pull out these little foam squares, like they just fly. They just go everywhere. They're on the table, they're on the floor, and then I look down and I'm like, oh, I need to vacuum. So we vacuum and then we move on and we do it all over again. But here we go. I finally figured out how I wanted the photos layered, and then I just decide needed to move it a little bit more. And now, yay, I'm happy. So I've got this little cluster going up on the top third of the page, and my design goes almost down to the bottom, which is awesome. So I am covering up a lot of this letter and number background, but again, I'm okay with it. Because you're getting enough of it. You kind of look at this layout and you see the school paper and you see the letters and numbers, and you probably, without even reading anything between those details and the photos, you kind of figure out this is like a school layout. So I'm not like screaming it at you. I will scream it at you in a little bit when we finally make up the title, because fun fact, best day ever is not the title, it's just an embellishment, which is one thing I like to do. I love to embellish with words. I think that is a super fun way to convey the feeling and emotion that you want to get across on a layout. Now, these flare badges that I'm using, it has the days of the week on it, so I thought that was really cute to match up with best day ever. Sometimes I get these ideas and I'm like, haha, I am so smart and witty. So I was really excited to put that flare badge on it. And I think I even was like, haha, when I was doing it. What I'm doing here is the flare badge has this foam adhesive on the back of it, and I'm just kind of cutting it out a little bit because I want it to layer over top of the best day ever banner, and I really don't want it to push the banner down too far. And then I'm going to take this a little bit of banners, and these suckers came from Michael's, and they're just like kind of fishtailed label stickers, and I'm really into doing these 2 little banners hanging down off of something lately. I've done it on a lot of layouts recently, and then there was a period of time where I didn't, and then there was like I'm going through phases. Do you guys notice that you do that? You go through phases when you scrapbook. You're like, oh, I'm doing this on all the layouts. And then you start to do something else, and you're like, I'm doing this on all the layouts. And then you just keep on going, and then you've discovered that you have something that you do on all the layouts. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and get that floral die cut to kind of nestle around that flare badge. And it gives me a little bit more problems than it should. For some reason, I just couldn't get it to adhere where I wanted it to. Probably, well, I mean, most definitely my problem was I didn't have enough adhesive on it. But that is something that I've noticed. I am usually a top-down scrapbooker, meaning I pick up my layers and tuck things underneath a whole bunch of times. And so I usually don't go like all out crazy with adhesive while I'm creating the layouts. And I usually add the adhesive to the layouts afterwards, just to give it a little bit more stability. And I am also one that puts my layouts pretty much right away in page protectors, so that helps it as well. Now back here, I'm just going to go through and find a whole bunch of different little florals that I like that kind of go with the whole color scheme I've got going on here, just tucking them in and adding a little bit more weight to this cluster that I have here with the banner. So the banner is pretty huge compared to the size of the flare badge, and I just felt like it needed a little bit of extra oomph behind it, that little bit of extra weight, so it didn't kind of feel like, oh, you've got these little teeny tiny embellishments on this big old banner. Like, so I needed to do that. And I'm using a mixture of florals. And like I said earlier, that's one of my favorite things to do, is to mix up the florals and just figure out like what will make things work. Now this little 4-petal flower, so I always feel bad for 4-petal flowers. For some reason they just like, they look like little flowers that need some extra petals. So what do I do with that poor little 4-petal flower that I feel sad about? I cut it in half and tucked it in 2 different places. And that's okay, because there's just more of it to love, right? I mean, that makes sense in my head. Even though it's the same exact flower, there's just more of it to love now. So anyway, there that is. Now I am pulling out a lot of these little like single stem flowers, and these guys are getting their stems ripped off and tucked in. And the only reason why they are getting their stems ripped off is because I haven't figured out ahead of time where the florals would go. So if I figure that out ahead of time, I usually don't cut off the stems. I usually just add the adhesive right there and use that stem to hold the floral down. But like I said, top down, it's not working. So this camera also came from Close to My Heart, and I know I want to use it on the page, and I'm not exactly sure how. So I'm just trying to figure that out. Now, these little glitter arrows, I wanted to bring in because I have this big glitter details that I know is going on the page. Not exactly sure what I'm doing with it yet, but I know it's going there. So I needed to bring in some more glitter. And the little arrows here were a little bit too big to fit in that space, so I chopped off one of the little quivers at the end. So instead of it having 3, it just has the 2. And I'm thinking about trying to stuff in some more flowers or figure out like something around here, and it's just, I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I like this cluster and I need something else, and I just don't know what I'm doing. So I'm trying out all kinds of different things, and none of them are really working. None of them are like saying, yeah, this is how you do it. If that details was probably a different word, I probably would have just stuck it down there and journaled and called it a day. but because it had details on there, I felt like I needed to do something else. So I try out these wooden 1, 2, 3 buttons because I thought that it would go great with the background and also details like a detailed list. But it just didn't feel right. So I decided that I needed to basically mimic the flare badge, but I didn't want another flare badge on the page. So I went to my backless brads and I found one here that I liked. Now, the little gold glitter geotag comes off and it does not come back on the page. I just thought it was cute and I like little geotags there. And I feel like geotags only really get used on travel pages or destination pages, and you don't need to do them just on travel or destination pages. They're just cute little embellishments that can basically go anywhere. So don't worry on this layout. The poor little geotag didn't make it, but I did do another layout that I think is already posted where I did a geotag that had nothing to do with travel. So yay. So I think what my problem is with this camera is it has that flash bulb up on the top of it where it has a heart in it. And I think that was just throwing me off a little bit. So I went ahead and chopped that guy off. Like, that camera didn't need a flash bulb. You know, no flash bulbs needed. So I'm just going to layer that behind the photo along with the floral. And as you can see, I chose the floral to go in that particular spot for a couple reasons. One was because I could hook that leaf over top of the photo, so not everything is behind the photo. I have some stuff on top as well. And one is, see, it's kind of like that fern leaf that's going along the edge of the striped paper where it meets the school paper. I felt like I really liked that, like it's following that line that's already there. So it's not really messing up your line of sight, even though I have this cluster that I'm creating up there. So that is why I did that. And now I'm just going through, picking more florals, kind of figuring out where I want them to go, what little gaps in the paper I want to cover up. And then I'm not exactly sure why I turn my paper upside down when I'm clustering florals, but for some reason it just works for me. So, I mean, there you go. I keep saying I'm going to try to scrapbook a layout upside down. If you remember, back in the day, Shamel used to scrapbook upside down for her videos, and I always was impressed that she was able to do that. And I kept saying, I'm going to try that one day. I'm going to try that one day. Well, I never have, but I do turn my layouts upside down sometimes while I'm working on them. So I'm halfway there, right? So now I'm just going to go ahead and get details glued down to the page using this Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. Love this adhesive so hard. Makes my heart go so happy. So now I've got details down there. I've got a little floral cluster. I've repeated that circle shape actually in 3 places now, with the days of the week near best day ever. Of course, with the little faux brad that I have on this tiny floral cluster by details. And then up at the top on the camera, there's a circle in the camera too where the lens is. So really, inadvertently, I have put circles in all 3 clusters. And, you know, sometimes happy accidents like that happen. You channel your inner Bob Ross with your happy accident, and it just flows. And not that I intended on having circles in all 3 like little clusters that I got going on here. I did intend on having this circle in another place because of the flare badge, but the camera just happened. So, and that's pretty awesome. I love it when little things like that come together on their own. So I'm just using some foam squares here, and I'm popping up some of the edges of the florals and the leaves, and that's just to give them a little lift off the paper. Because florals and leaves aren't flat in life, and even though these are not the colors really of real flowers and leaves, I want them to have a little bit of lift too and a little bit of life. Now these are some enamel dots, and they are in kind of like a dark teal color, and I'm just adding them in as well. And my favorite way to add enamel dots is 3 enamel dots in varying sizes, so like a small, medium, and large. And that also allows me to use up the larger enamel dots that come in packages, because, you know, sometimes those enamel dots are pretty huge, but I like the look of the 3 sizes together, so that works for me. Now I'm just got to figure out what my title is going to be, and I've got to figure out what the journaling is going to be. But first, I gotta look through the flowers, and then I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do. So I pulled out these tiny tile stickers from Jelly Bean Soup, and I'm trying to figure out if I wanted the title above the word details or below. And then I decided to do below. And that was just because I have details at the bottom of the stenciled letters and numbers, and I just felt like this kind of gave it a good ending. So yeah, so it's going to spell out details of senior year. And then what I'm going to do is just journal a little bit about how this is her last year. She doesn't have a whole lot of classes for credits for graduation, so she's just going to wrap those up. So I'm going to add the journaling to this page, you guys, and while I am wrapping up the layout, be sure that you check out all the links down below. So again, this YouTube Hope was goodness. This YouTube Hop was hosted by Sarah Scraps, and it is going to be chock full of all kinds of talented, crafty scrapbooker type ladies. So be sure that you check that out for sure. Oh, had to add in that other arrow. So I felt this was another time where I felt like I needed some more glitter. So I don't always follow the design rules. Like if you have 3 clusters in the in the triangle, you should have similar things in each one. But I really felt like it needed the glitter up there too. Like I just really felt like it needed it. Don't feel that way all the time about all layouts, but this time, you know, glitter is good. Glitter is great. Glitter is fan-freaking-tastic, people, and more is more sometimes. So I added more glitter. Now I'm just going to add the date up here, and that is going to do it for this layout, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to click all the links down below, and I will see you again real soon.